Behind me, the Pałac Pod Blachą here in Warsaw. This is the home of Prince Józef Poniatowski. His home, the place where he had his famous parties, also the War Office. Who was Józef Poniatowski? He was in fact a major figure in Polish history. Patriot, general, Minister of War, sometime Marshal of France. Join me in this episode of Poland Daily History, where we learn more about this remarkable Polish figure. Dominik, we're here now in what was in fact the War Office, literally the War Office. This is the room in which the Princess, Minister of War, would be planning military operations. And indeed we're sitting actually in front of what I believe is the desk at which he would have sat.
Mm-hmm. That was asserted by a guide who works here, so I think this is this is quite accurate what he said. I mean, it looks old, of course. I'm not a specialist on wooden crafts whatsoever, but apparently we are sitting next to the desk next to which Prince Joseph took the most important decisions while in office. So this room, so we're talking about the palace as a ministry, but here in fact was the headquarters. So it was here that Józef Poniatowski signed orders, read reports, appointed generals or officers.
Very, very modest room in many ways to be the centre of a ministry, but of course life was a little less complicated in those days.
As we can see, there aren't many books. That's yet another thing, anecdote about Prince Joseph. As much as Napoleon was a reader, and he would read Suetonius, all the classic authors, Prince Joseph was quite different. He wasn't a bookworm. His library is rather modest. One of the reasons for sure is that he didn't have time, because either he was preoccupied with women and alcohol or military affairs.
Yeah, more a man of action than a thinker.
Yeah,
or more a man of, maybe to be fairer, more a man of action than a reader. Yeah, I'm sure he did a lot of thinking, one way or the other. And of course, it was then in 1811 that he visited Paris.
He did
for the baptism of Napoleon's first child, I think.
First legal child.
Good point. Yes, thank you for making that. Baptism of the child, and where he took the opportunity to discuss with Napoleon, the French generals, the forthcoming campaign against Russia.
He was trying to persuade Napoleon that crucial in this campaign will be an attack on Ukraine. Why? Ukraine is a storehouse of Europe. You have very, very fertile land. It can be a good basis for a marching army. Napoleon thought otherwise. He said that to conquer Russia is to occupy, to enter one of the two major cities, either St. Petersburg or Moscow. In fact, we'll come to that later, he didn't have any plan B.
No.
So what if? So if I enter Moscow and the Russians don't want to talk about peace. So Prince Joseph was trying to persuade. Unfortunately, he didn't manage to persuade.
But also, didn't Prince Joseph have a slightly ulterior motive, in that by going in the sort of southern route, he was hoping to pick up some of the Polish rebels, and also thinking in the future, maybe this was a good way of getting more influence.
Yeah,
and being able to capture more or recapture more of the land which had once been part of Poland.
Yes, I mentioned the improvisation of the food matters, because that could be interesting for Napoleon. Napoleon had a very vague opinion of Eastern Europe. I said that he was a reader. He read a book on Poland, but it's a very biased book by Mr. La Roulière,
Right.
History of Poland, and what he understood from that book is that the main Polish vice, national vice, is the Polish anarchy. That's what he understood from that.
And that has become become quite a popular cliche in sort of people's understanding of Poland at that time.
For state nations, it is, because they can always say that what kind of nation are Poles if they cannot maintain their own state? I mean, it's not my point of view. I'm trying to say how these things can be perceived. And so that argument that he could, of course, he was putting it forward that there are Poles in Ukraine, and that there are Ruthenians, the Cossacks, who also hate the Russians, although the name is very similar, Ruthenians and Russians, because they believe to be the true Ruthenians. The hereditors of Kiev and Rus.
Yes, exactly. Moscow, a bit of an upstart, in their view.
So these arguments were very, very. All these arguments were important, but for Napoleon, that was the thing. I think that was the thing, the argument that might have been,
the strongest,
if any, the strongest.
But he didn't accept it anyway, though.
Even after the Battle of Smolensk in August 1812, where the Polish corps fought very bravely and Polish soldiers received almost 100 crosses of the Legion of Honor for the bravery shown in that battle. After that battle, Prince Joseph was trying to persuade Napoleon this time not to go with him, but to let him go to Ukraine. But Napoleon refused.